This is a strange memory I have from when I was young, and it raises a lot of questions. I'm about 12 to 13 years old. I find myself in my dad's truck late at night. It's cold outside and snow covers the ground in northern Michigan. I wait for him to enter the truck so we can drive somewhere. I'm not sure where we're going, I just know we're going somewhere. Like, maybe the store to go shopping? He enters the truck and pulls out of the driveway and begins driving down the road. He stops the truck suddenly, as he sees through the window of my bedroom the silhouette of a man standing in front of the closed door, within my room. "What the hell was that?" he says under his breath. I laugh. I tell him it's nobody. What he was seeing was a life-size poster of a basketball player that my mom had given me the day before. She got it for free from someone at her work. I didn't even watch basketball, but as a kid I thought the size of the poster itself was cool. So I put it up on the back of my door, so when the door shut, you could see the poster. And this door was lined up within the window. I explained this all to my dad 2 feet away from him in the passenger seat. He completely ignores me and says again, "What the hell? I have to check this out." The whole time he's saying this, he's staring down the poster in my room. I tell him again, "Dad, it's just my poster." He still ignores me. He flings open the door to his truck and rushes inside the house to my room. He pounds on the door to my room and opens it, with my mom at his side. My mom laughs and tells him he was just seeing my poster, so he calms down. I just laugh and I say, "See, that's what I kept telling you, but you never listened." He still doesn't say anything. Months pass and I have this funny memory in my head. And one day, as funny conversations and memories get kicked up with my family, I bring it up and say, "Hey, remember that time you thought someone was in my room when we were in your truck when we went to go drive to the store?" At first, he looks confused and then says, "Yeah, I remember seeing the poster, but the store?" I respond, "Yeah, the store, I remember. I was sitting next to you telling you it was my poster, but then you just decided to run inside anyway." He then says, "We weren't going to the store, and you weren't with me. It wasn't nighttime either. I was driving to work really early in the morning when it was still dark, when I had seen that poster. When I hurried up and ran inside and opened your door to see who was in your room, you were still passed out asleep in your bed." I immediately got the chills as I realized why he never responded to me when I was sitting next to him. He never responded to me because I was never really there. He couldn't see me or hear me. When I sat next to him on that cold winter morning in his truck, I was nothing but a ghost. To this day, this weird memory has raised a lot of questions for me, and it almost makes me wonder if this happened to be a time in my childhood when I may have actually astral projected, and I never realized it. I clearly have that memory, and had I not brought it up again for the laughs, I wouldn't have heard his side of the story and received the actual context of the scenario. So, it makes me wonder how many other people may have memories that took place or seemed normal at the time without them realizing what exactly they were doing. Any missing time stories? This happened to me only once, 16 years ago, and I still have no idea what happened. Be me, 8 years old, early spring. Still some snow left on the ground, but not much. My house was a block and a half away from my school. You could see my roof from the hill the schoolyard was on. Absolutely no way I could ever get lost. So, I walked home from school every day. 3 p.m. School's out. Start my walk. Get about halfway home. This next bit is like burned into my memory. It's honestly the most vivid recollection I have. I remember a school bus pulling up on the street next to me at a stop sign. Bushes on my left. I was looking at an odd bit of snow on the ground. Suddenly, I have no idea where I am. Dried blood under my nose. It's getting dark. Wander around for a while. Still no clue where I could be. Give up and do what any 8-year-old would. Sit down and cry. An old lady finds me, apparently out for an evening stroll. Asks what's wrong. I explain the situation and I give her my address. She says she knows my street. Walk for what seems like an hour and a half. Really dark when we make it to my street. I tell her I know where I am. I thank her and I leave. Get home. It's going on about 10 p.m. now. Mom is pissed. Thought I tried to run away or something. Tried explaining it to her, and she doesn't believe me. I see my dad the next day. Parents were separated. He thinks I have epilepsy, so he takes me to a doctor. I'm perfectly fine. Never happens again. Thinking about it still kind of freaks me out. Never known anyone else who also experienced this. I've decided to bring this story up to my dad today. He said he remembered it well, and he was really worried about my health at the time, but that wasn't the freaky part. He went on to tell me this. Be me, 8 years old. Still. Live with my mom on the weekdays. See dad every weekend. A week after I lost that time, my dad says I kept telling him weird stories about lights and nightmares. He claims I told him about a dream I had where people would just come and stand around my bed all night, and I would be too scared to move. Dad plays it off as a regular kid, imagination or nightmares, etc., although he did tell me he was a little weirded out. I go back to my mom's place. See dad again the next week. Tell him I saw lights in my backyard at night. I had a room on the second story of the house with a clear view of the yard from a window. He says I would tell him the lights would sit in the yard for hours. Sometimes they would move around and, quote-unquote, spin. He's freaked out, but says I didn't think anything of it. I go back to mom's. He thinks about it for a couple of days and calls my mom up to ask her about it. She apparently got pissed and told him nothing was happening. I see my dad again the next weekend. He asks me about the lights and nightmares, but I adamantly told him, those aren't real. Mom told me so. She said never to talk about it again. He said after that, he dropped the subject, even though I seemed kind of sad and dejected when I said that. I don't really remember any of this, but I've got a pretty spotty memory of those years anyway, and I couldn't even really tell you about major stuff like birthdays or school. Mom's an alien. Next. It's my first time posting a story here. Sorry if I don't exactly follow the conventions. Very normal, low-key childhood. Grew up in an area famous for its seclusion and scenery. Houses surrounded by thick forests, middle of a valley that's sandwiched between several more valleys that grow increasingly large. Always took in the woods/forest familiarity as normal and completely non-threatening. Always got cracked up by how people would react to coyote shrieks and owl hoots. Regularly walked by itself in the general area around the house since 9 or 10. Followed old skid trails and ridges that, by all means, I should have gotten lost on. Spookiest thing that ever happened to me was getting jump scared by a deer, bursting out from behind a tree and scampering off. I was never worried about walking alone. Hiking and just messing around in the woods was my absolute favorite pastime. It only takes one night for this to completely change and give me severe panic attacks when alone in nature. Early December, I'm 12. It's 3:30-ish a.m. Mom wakes me up, tells me to follow her onto our porch. Lights are all off, and she tells me to be quiet. Dead silence. She's clearly listening for something. We wait for 5 minutes. Repeatedly hushes me, and I'm getting worried she's having a hallucination or something. Goes back inside. She makes sure the door is locked like 5 times. Tells me that she heard crying. She's convinced that it was a kid. I tell her she was probably dreaming, but she's convinced it was real. Tells me that I woke her up and lasted for the better part of a minute. She describes it in really freaky detail. Can explain exactly how it sounded. A choking, terrified sob sort of sound. She immediately jumped to a lost kid. She explains that it was loud enough that she heard it through her closed door and her window on the opposite end of the large house. Whatever, I didn't hear anything. Tells me that it came from the direction that my window, right over the head of my bed, points out. Weirded out, but not fully convinced. Lock window. Go back to sleep. Mid-January. Still 12. There are some really beautiful views from ridges overlooking some old clear-cutting areas only a couple hours hiking behind our property. 12-year-old idiot me grabs a granola bar and decides to make a day out of it. On the way, notice some strange footprints. They're completely spherical, as if someone was pressing featureless balls, maybe 10 inches in diameter, over and over again. Strange little marks at the base of the indentation. Weird, but whatever. They're not exactly threatening, so I ignore them. 3 hours of fucking around later, I get back to the house. Mom's home. I ask her about the tracks just out of curiosity. She knows her shit on this stuff. Her dad has a wall full of hunting shit, and she was always that kid that he took with her, and who kept up with him the best. She's curious too. Follows me out to where they start. After a couple of minutes, she starts laughing. They're turkey tracks. The turkeys were sitting down because of the cold, and they managed to make perfect circular shapes. The little marks in the center were clearly normal tracks in a few of them. Start heading back, talking and laughing. She goes dead silent. I notice. Ask what's going on. She just starts walking away from me, towards the side of a ridge I normally don't go towards. Did you do this? It's a fucking perfect human footprint. Tell her absolutely not. It's bigger than my foot anyway. I walked this exact way earlier today. This was not fucking here. It snowed last night too, and I was paying attention to every little change in the scenery. The turkey tracks had been very well hidden at the edge of a skid trail. This had to have been done after I walked past it, and now my stomach is in knots. Absolutely zero question about it. It wasn't spooky Bigfoot or anything like that, just a straight-up human footprint. You would be dead from frostbite if you were wearing even socks and pajamas outside the night before. Our pipes had almost froze again despite having both a wood stove and furnace working to heat them. It's not a single footprint. There's an entire trail. This just happened to be in clear sight while the others were more hidden. The trail is sharply curved in a U-turn, stopping at this footprint and heading back in the same direction. It goes on forever. We walk alongside it for what feels like an hour. It stays close to where I was walking. This is a usual path for me, and now I'm getting really genuinely freaked out. Looks like it was following me from a distance, and now she's getting scared. Anyone who walks barefoot this long is far, far beyond normal. Obviously a danger. We both fucking stopped dead in our tracks. A few feet ahead, coming up from a ravine and joining with the one we're following, is a new trail. It's a child's footprints. Fucking unquestionable once again. You can see every single toe in perfect detail. We're getting nervous as all hell, but we continue on until we see another trail of slightly smaller footprints. There's 2 kids. There's 3 clearly distinguishable spots where snow was pushed or clawed away, and someone or something laid down or did something that required contact with the frozen grass. We were probably just getting panicky, but we thought it looked fresh. We book it back to the house, arguing about if we should call the cops, or Game and Fish, or whoever we would call for something like this. Finally decide that we shouldn't because technically it's not our property, and my mom's really paranoid about trespassing. My brother got busted for it. All around just a really bad situation. Decide that we'll go out again tomorrow with Dad and brother and see if we can find anything, and then decide if we need to call. That night, still terrified, alternating between, "It's snow hobos," and, "Oh my god, there's frozen corpses in the woods." It snows like crazy. Near blizzard, just like the night before. 3:30-ish a.m., once again. Woken up by Mom standing over me, poking my side. Outside my window, distant but audible, there's the unmistakable sound of a child sniffling and crying. Mom looks terrified. I only hear the last few seconds of it as it wanders into the woods. It's the exact fucking direction the tracks were in. After a few minutes of silence, we go out on the porch with Dad and brother. Brother and Dad both have to wake up around 4:30 a.m. for work, so I was the go-to if anything was wrong at night. This meant my mom was seriously afraid. It's silence for a few minutes. We're about to go back inside. We're all eager to get back inside. Snow falling in the dark is somehow horrifying when combined with the sounds of the wind. I still remember how creepy it looked because of the almost full moon. We're constantly looking back to the other end of the porch in paranoia. Suddenly, across the way, in the same direction as the child crying, I hear the most god-awful noise of my entire life. I've never been able to find something even slightly comparable. The best I can explain it is an inhuman sound being made from a human body. It was a scream, and I'm almost certain that only an adult could make something with that much bass. But it didn't sound like any screaming I've ever heard come out of a human. It was almost closer to an ape shriek, but so much louder, so much deeper, and almost layered, so that to compare it to an animal really doesn't make sense. It wasn't one of those cheesy Bigfoot calls. No offense to people who get off to that stuff, but those always just sound like a chimpanzee scream being played in the woods via boombox. This was clearly living, and something like a human. This thing goes on for 40 seconds at least, non-stop. It tears through the wind like it's 3 feet away, and we're fucking paralyzed. Finally, silence, and we edge back to our door. It starts again, a little quieter, more of a shriek, and it only lasts a few seconds. It's on the opposite end of the property. We get inside, put the house on lockdown, and we get away from the windows. As we're debating if we need to call the cops, the fucking power goes out. Our phone, which we had just bought, is one of those pieces of shit that can't still be used, with just telephone wires still working. Scariest night of my life. No, nothing happens, but needless to say, we bought a new non-shit phone in a couple days when the roads were cleared. For a few years, I lived with my parents after that. I never really hiked by myself again. I tried to a couple years later and I got seriously terrified. Next time our uncle comes to visit, he himself used to be a big hiker. We talk about it and ask if he ever saw any footprints or anything like that in the area. Is visibly disturbed. Has had similar experiences. Turns out, there's been a few situations on the road over the past 30 years that could be the same thing. It sounds kind of shitty without any actual sightings of whatever the hell it was, but anyone who heard the noises I heard that night would never want to go in those woods again. I had waking nightmares for ages of walking in the snow and seeing something, but I never remembered what it was when I woke up. Lots of freaky shit like that from my mom, too. I'm not big into this kind of shit, but I really don't know what was up that area, or how it could be easily explained. My friend and I were in a required computer literacy class, one that was far below the brow of either of us. We were able to complete our typing assignments remarkably quickly, or so we thought. If one was very advanced, they could get into the PowerPoint and Excel assignments, which were usually assigned at later points in the class. After our 15 minutes of work was done, we were left with 40 minutes to either go further in the class or, if we didn't mention our completion until the end of the class, it would be time for flash games. There was a catch though. We had to make our way through the filter. This turned out to be easy for the two of us. All we had to do was load up command.com, or something similar, to ping the websites that we wanted to go to. When we typed in the IP addresses we got from pinging the websites, we could get in, but the actual domain name was blocked. It was this technical savvy that landed me and my friend in grand trouble. My friend and I realized that our access to the command line let us do a lot more things than we were supposed to be able to. For some reason, it was allowed, but cmd.x could not be loaded without administrator privileges. This didn't matter to us, though. My friend told me, let's see if we can find anything cool in the teachers' directories. We had figured a way to access these through the command line, and in our spare time in the class, we snooped around the files of our teachers and administrators. We had even garnered the password to the school's administrator account, named Santa. Among us, the name Santa had mythical abilities. He could watch YouTube videos and stream music through the internet with impunity. Our 8th grade minds were tantalized by these prospects during our computer class, which was drudgery during the mandatory 15 minutes of work at the beginning. We looked in the vice principal's files and saw a bunch of files, but it was mostly just things for newsletters and such. Looking around our other teachers' files yielded similarly uninteresting results. But there was one that we had forgotten. Our computer teacher. Our computer teacher was a veteran of the Afghan War. Many of his friends had died in combat, and he often talked about his experiences there. Honestly, he wasn't much of a computer teacher. On occasion, he even remarked about his computer troubles, and it was obvious that word processing software was just about the extent of his expertise. He was a very relaxed teacher and tolerated a great deal of laziness within the class, which made him a favorite amongst the students, in spite of his dubious qualifications. For this reason, we hesitated to violate his privacy by snooping in his file structure. He was one of our favorite teachers, and he taught our favorite class. He seemed to be one of the calmest and most fun teachers we'd ever had. We swallowed this guilt, however, hoping to find something that allowed us a way to bypass the filter on our own accounts. We had begun using Santa as our own account, but we knew this wouldn't last. Eventually, someone would figure out that we were using an administrator account, and the password would be changed. We needed a more permanent solution to our problem. Despite the fact that our computer teacher couldn't click his way through a paper box, we threw a shot in the dark, hoping to find something to go on. We clicked around for a while, looking through his files quickly to find something that would unblock our favorite sites. This went on for several class periods, and we could only look for about 25 minutes during a class period. Logging in and out took a great deal of time, and doing so at the wrong time would leave us red-handed. We often waited for our computer teacher to settle into his desk, doing other work and leaving his eyes off of our activities. Eventually, after the 5th day of searching, we came across a zip file. The zip file was encrypted, and we assumed that this had to be the motherlode, the file that would tell us how to manipulate the filter to our purposes. We had come prepared with a flash drive to copy the file, and we knew that figuring out the password would be complicated. We copied the file while our teacher wasn't looking, and decided we would meet up later to figure out what was inside of it. Even though it was the last quarter of the year, and our hard work was about to be done in a few months, we still wanted to accomplish this end. With so much time invested, we couldn't give up now. We brought the file home and began using our favorite tool, Google, to figure out how to break the zip open. Through tons of websites, links from various forums, and suspicious utilities, quote-unquote, to open encrypted zip files, we had come up with no other way besides brute force to break the file open. Between my friend and I, we guessed a variety of passwords. We had guessed password, 1234, ABCD, and other permutations thereof. Our computer teacher wasn't that good with computers, but he was not a grandmother, obviously. We even tried the password admin, even though that was usually reserved for networks. That didn't work either. Eventually, after tons of failed attempts to break open the zip, my friend said, "Well, let's try something from Futurama. He always talks about it. Let's try Slurm. He's got that poster behind his desk about it." We tried the password, and much to our surprise, it worked. We were in. Unfortunately for us, the contents of the zip file contained nothing relating to our goal. Instead, it was a series of pictures featuring U.S. military men and an Afghan woman. In the first picture, the man and the woman appeared to be having a good time. Everything seemed just fine in that picture, but further on, things became far from fine. Further on, the picture showed the men with the woman with decreasing amounts of clothes on. She no longer seemed happy, and was obviously being held against her will. Further on, the event progressed into, assault. In the pictures prior to this part of the event, our teacher had not been seen in the pictures. However, a few pictures in, our computer teacher appeared, apparently for his turn with the woman. The pictures which included him did not include another one of the men, so we assumed that he must have been taking the pictures for the majority of this attack. We couldn't believe our eyes. Our teacher, the calmest and nicest person we'd ever known, had assaulted someone while he was in Afghanistan. But our fear and disgust at that point was nothing compared to the pictures we saw towards the end of the series. Our teacher stabbed a woman in one picture, and in the next, the original 3 men urinated on her corpse. We agonized over the implications of what we had found. With our newfound interest in the law and what was illegal, we found out that our breaking into the school's network could carry a 10-year penalty. We were both 14, and in our state that was old enough to be charged as an adult. Furthermore, we didn't want to ruin our teacher's life. He had redeemable qualities to us, and we thought that he must have atoned for his wrongdoing in the past. We couldn't do this to the person who had facilitated our wrongful entry into the school network. The next day, the school's system administrator had caught up with us. Well, he knew that someone was abusing the Santa account, and that whoever was doing it was in our class by the time period that it was happening. There was apparently only one computer class going on during our period, and the timestamps on the logins of the administrator account showed a pattern of entries during the period of our class. This information was shared with our computer teacher, who showed a combination of disappointment, grief, and anger towards our class. Luckily for us, we had kept our activity secret. The part of the class that we sat in was relatively unoccupied, and since we both appeared to be model students, we weren't the first suspects. But my teacher interrogated the entire class equally, and we all felt his wrath. He stood over us, a tower of muscle and anger, a combination most of us weren't accustomed to. He stared with intensity that ignited a horrible fear in all of us, causing even the most stoic of us to be noticeably uncomfortable. Our discomfort was particularly noticeable and extreme, partially because we were guilty, and partially because of what we had found during our exploits. He lined us up, asking each of us, "Was it you?" To which all of us answered, "No, sir." When he came to my friend and I, however, he said, "You two didn't do it, right?" Asking us in a manner showing that he still maintained his trust of us. We felt especially horrible because of this tone. We knew he trusted us, and we had violated that trust. But regardless, we just answered, "No, sir." He left us quickly, lingering for much less time than for the other students. We had passed the danger. Luckily for us, no one else admitted to it, and the punishment was given to the entire class in the form of being relocated away from the computers. We were overseen strictly as a result of this problem, but luckily there was no jail time for anyone. My friend and I swore to never talk about what we had seen again. We deleted the files and went to separate high schools afterwards. In retrospect, I should probably have done something, but I was too scared to know what to do. Without any evidence to validate my claims, this will just have to remain as a story.